This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at thebatmanuniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
Hi, Babs lovers. This is Carolyn Coca. In 2013, I was at Denver Comic-Con, and I went to a panel called Spotlight on Denny O'Neil. And the first question that Denny was asked was, is it pronounced Raz or Raish? And Denny said, I meant it to be pronounced Raish. So, there you go. Fly on, Babs lovers. Hashtag Carolyn knows.
Gotham City, like any other large metropolis, abounds in girls of all shapes and sizes. Debutantes, nurses, stenographers, and librarians.
Gotham City Library, Miss Gordon speaking.
Lopez hair removal. This is Jose.
Holy transformation. 1 minute, plain Barbara Gordon, librarian and Commissioner Gordon's daughter. And the next minute, something new has been added. Batgirl, modeled after her idol, Batman.
Holy apparition! No, Boy Wonder, I'm Batgirl. You are no longer alone, Capes Crusaders.
It took me 3 years to track down the Jade Gato, and 3 more to figure out how to steal it.
Funny, it only took me 10 minutes to figure out how to snatch it back. No matter how you do it, crime doesn't pay girls.
Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon Podcast, episode 182 for November MMXIX. Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by...
Anyone hear us?
This is Trey Lawson.
And I'm James Hickson.
Anyone can hear this broadcast. We need your help.
We've been kidnapped and imprisoned in a tomb by this creepy old undertaker named Mr. Gravely.
And he's forcing us to review his collection of Marvel horror comics. Stuff like Tomb of Dracula,
Werewolf by Night,
Man-Thing,
Ghost Rider,
and so much more. If you can hear this, please contact our families. Tell them we can be found at...
You can find James and Trey every other Wednesday at the Tomb of Ideas, a Marvel horror podcast. See you there, Tomb Believers.
Batgirl the Oracle is also brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comic books from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express. offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. I guess it must have been maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago that this guy started his tenure on the show, where each time JLA popped up and JLA Titans and all of that stuff, I would call on him to be my co-host. And now we're at the end of that. Not saying that he'll never be on again, but we're at the end of his JLA tenure. So please welcome back for one of the final Justice League times, my good friend, Tom Panarese.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. We're getting close to having a week off from school.
Well, yeah, I have 5 days. I don't have a whole week, but I have 5 days.
Oh, okay. You're counting the
weekend.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, I have and I don't even actually have 5. I have 4.
Oh gosh.
Because Friday is a PD day, so I don't have students, but I have professional development all day. Then I have the weekend. Then Monday is technically a work day, but it's a flex day, so I can work from home, although I'll probably go in for a little while. And Tuesday's off. So It is kind of it's almost like a working weekend, but it's kind of nice. So
yeah, I mean, as long as we get some days off, I think one should not complain. But
I need a break.
Yeah. And I just had parent-teacher conferences, so I'm like absolutely looking for a break, as you well know.
Yeah, I had those a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, it's been busy. Very, very busy. Lots of essays and projects to grade.
Yeah, it's a time. So thanks for coming on here. And
no problem.
You'll be on a double whammy for November, but we shan't spoil yet what that second whammy is. That will happen.
Mm-hmm.
But you're on here we're doing Tower of Babel, Justice League, and it's the last story that we're doing together as far as my Excel document says, which is funny because when I saw Babs is in like 2 panels. And so in the end, does it warrant, that we do it? But I think it's a great story, and I think that it deserves being covered. And we're going to do something fun with it too. So I'm excited for that. So because we're doing Tower of Babel, I thought I would play a different game with you since we've already done the Foreign Bodies game with you.
We have, because I think you started the Foreign Bodies game with me.
Yes, I did. So now this game is called Contingency Plan. So I'm going to name 3 people that you know in the podcasting world, and I would like you to tell me what plan you would have in place in case that person ever went evil. Are you prepared?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll start off easy. Shag, what would you do if Shag turned evil?
What do you mean turned?
More evil than he is. How about that?
I just contract that out to Rob.
Okay.
He'll take care of it for me.
Okay. The next person is Michael Bailey. Now, this is hard to imagine, but what if Michael Bailey turned evil? What is your contingency plan?
Michael Bailey's ineffective. He's still stuck at that Chili's in Charlottesville, even though that place closed down months ago.
That is true. He's still tapping that little thing.
I would get him stuck in an endless loop of Superman fan rage comment argument.
Oh, okay. And then the final one is my dear friend, Donovan Morgan Grant.
I know how to get it. Okay, so you know that picture of, I think it's like Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got the big conspiracy board behind him and he's looking crazy and he's like looking at somebody else.
Yep.
That would be Don after I make him reconcile every single Robotech, Macross, and tangential and connected anime into a tight continuity that makes sense.
Okay. And there you have it. I guess
that's about as good as I can get with that.
Tom Panarese's contingency plan. I'm surprised with Shag. I think I would have thrown a hot girl in front of his path.
I think that would work too.
But Rob is the way to go. You contract him out.
Look. I'm of Italian American descent, and I grew up in New York. We make sure that this does not connect back to us, and we just make a phone call and it gets taken care of. So that would, know what I.
Yeah, I do. I do know what you mean. Well, thank you for playing contingency.
Not playing on
plan.
stereotypes at all.
No, I guess not. Thank you for playing Contingency Plan with me. I don't know if that game will go any farther. Foreign Bodies is a thinker for people. But Contingency Plan could be a backup game that I have. But speaking of Donovan, now, as you are aware, I had some Twitter polls that were, well, I should say, speaking of Shag and Donovan, I had some Twitter polls to rate those guests. And, of course, people came in, they chimed in about Donovan, that 82% of the people who voted gave him 5 stars, and no one voted 2 stars and below. So then, do you want to hear what Firestorm fan, a.k.a. Shag, got?
Sure.
Okay. 38% of voters gave him a 5, 16 gave him a 4, 13 gave him a 3, and 34%, which is a near second, gave him 2 and below.
How many people voted?
32 people voted on this one, and only 17 voted for Donovan. I did do some quick maths. It seems like Donovan would still win, even with the percentage, with the 82% saying 5 stars and 38 saying, yeah. So out of the two, if I did a little bracket, March Madness style, it seems like Donovan would be in the lead so far.
Is that the popular vote or the electoral vote?
Oh gosh, yeah. Let's get into that. No, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd say popular since it's on the Twitters.
Okay, so according to the Twitter poll, Donovan is in the lead for your semi-regular co-host.
Correct. I think so.
All right.
Because I did percentages and things like that, and it seems like he's ahead by maybe 1 person or something, or 1.5 people. But
okay.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with either of them.
Really?
You've got yeah. I mean, because one is like a total Cass Kane stan, and the other one's Shag. So
yeah, I think everyone needs a little Shag in his or her life or their life.
Yeah. So I will say the fact that Shag does not stay for the modern comics.
Yeah.
There was something else that he did too that I was like, wait a second, what?
That's true. Yeah. Oh, I don't. Well, yeah. What? Is
I don't know if Don does either of those. So.
He does stay around. Yeah.
He does.
So
okay.
Shag,
I know.
Yes,
so.
I'm always appreciative you say on. So Shag and Michael Bailey, if I were to throw someone else under the bus, do not stay.
Yeah, but Mike, when Mike gets guests on my show, he's totally slumming it. So I mean, Mike is a podcasting luminary. Michael Bailey can do whatever Michael Bailey wants.
Oh.
Yeah, he's the reason I decided to go into podcasting. So we have him to blame for all of that.
And he's helped me out so much too. Oh, what's happening here? You're even twittering right now about me. This is sad.
Oh, that's the back cover of the trade.
Oh, okay.
And I know you like that word so much.
I did like betrayal so much. Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, we'll see. I mean, I'm still auditioning people. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll audition Josh. I don't know. My final thing that I want to talk about before we get into the meat of this, I'll be very quick because Tom will have no idea what I'm talking about. But in the previous episode, I mentioned The Last of Us Part 2. Unfortunately, now it's been delayed. I was very excited. It was supposed to come out in February. Then they delayed it in May, which is what they were trying not to do, which is why they waited so long to even say a release date. But anyways, as you all know, I saw that $170 version that I thought this would be good. But how do I do that? So now I'm in a manipulation plan of my brother, nephew, sister-in-law, that little core family. And I've asked how many gifts do you think would accumulate? Like you can get rid of as many as you want for years to come if you would consider this. So I'm currently manipulating my sister-in-law to potentially get me this collected edition in return for not basically giving me gifts for years down the line. So
I just would throw it up on an Amazon wish list and leave it there and see
what happens.
It takes to pay. Yeah. I did that with like an iPod Touch years ago, and my parents got it for me. I didn't expect it. Yeah. Yeah, because I think it was on there because I was like, well, I want this, and because sometimes I put things on my Amazon wish list that I intend to buy, but I just want to remember that I wanted to buy it.
Yeah.
So
that is also a good idea.
Yeah. I do have a little something for that is Batgirl related.
Oh.
So if you, I know you don't necessarily listen to my show on a regular basis, but if you go and listen to, as of the night we're recording this, the most recent episode of Pop Culture Affidavit, which is my show. I was at the Baltimore Comic Con about a week and a half ago, as of this recording, October 19th, 20th, that weekend. And I met and talked to Brendan Fletcher. And we talked mostly about Robotech Remix, which is his new series from Titan Comics, and it stars Ange's favorite character, Dana Sterling. But he also talked a little bit about the Burnside run, because I did compliment him on the fact that I really, really enjoyed the Burnside run. So you can hear me talk to him for about 10 or 15 minutes. It was really great. We had a really nice conversation. So that's over at popcultureaffidavit.com.
And you name dropped me?
I did. I can't remember if I kept that part in, but I did name drop you when I talked to him. I said, we have a mutual friend, and he was like, oh, Stella, I love Stella. So he remembers you.
Oh, I'm glad to retain some professional relationships.
Yeah, such a nice guy too. Such a nice guy.
He really is, yeah. And he very much, he shows such enthusiasm for any book that he's on, which is great. And
to I don't know if Don actually listens to this show or if he listens to my show, but in the course of our conversation, he named he has a deep knowledge of Macross.
Ooh, okay.
Like, he was naming the stuff that, because all I've ever watched was the American Robotech series, the 84 episodes of the three things, as well as all of Macross Plus, which I saw back in college, and et cetera. And so it's what Don and I talked about, but he mentioned all the different animes and stuff. And then he mentioned the Jack McKinney novels. So
oh, wow.
I was like, yeah, nice. So knowing how Don likes deep cuts like that, and I know Don was hesitant on. I think he dropped the Titan Comics Robotech title because it went off in totally different directions and stuff. But I enjoyed the first issue of Remix, so I'm looking forward to the second. And I got it signed too. I got that and 2 other issues of Robotech signed by him.
That's great.
So I was pretty psyched. Yeah.
Overall, your time, you had a fun time?
I did. I was only there for about half the day because we had to get back. My mother-in-law's birthday was that evening, so we were back in Northern Virginia at around 5-6ish. So we did some shopping, and it was kind of I think I referred to it as a whirlwind. So it was but I stopped by Tom Zoller's table and picked up one of his things. I got a print from Luke Dobb. Met Marv Wolfman again.
Oh.
Probably the last year I'll probably see Marv Wolfman because I am running out of things that I need to have him signed. And he's up to $5 a signature. So I'm like, yeah, it's not a ton of money, and then met William Rosado, who was the penciler on the latter issues of the New Titans. And I had a long conversation with him. So I can't remember if there was anybody else off the top of my head.
Well, there was one glaring absence, remember?
Yes.
That was sad.
Yeah. I think he's an every other year person.
Oh, okay.
So Terry Moore may be back next year, and I do plan on going unless something comes up. Okay. So, because if I go, I will stop by his table and I will get all the things. Although I did just get the trade of Strangers in Paradise XX,
okay.
The omnibus trade.
Oh, yeah.
I ordered it through my LCS, so.
Gotcha.
And I think I'm going to did I order Motor Girl? I can't remember if I'm going to order Motor Girl or not, or there's something I'm going to get a trade of that I also put on hold, but that's later on, a couple months down the road.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else?
Nope, that's enough of me self-promoting.
Okay. No worries, yeah. Well, you make it sound like I don't listen to any of your shows, but I have been a loyal in-country listener for the past 6 months or so.
Yeah, and that just wrapped up back in October.
Yeah. Oh, so everything's out now?
Yeah, episode 100 dropped a few weeks ago.
Okay, I'll have to go on and download it. Your last one. Did I send my email in time?
You did make the emails.
Okay, I was worried about that.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Yeah, be sure to list. Well, I'll give you time to promote.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely recommend all of Tom's shows, and not just because we're friends. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to do our main event, which is, of course, JLA Tower of Babel, and I'm going to turn it over to Tom to take lead on this particular story.
Okay, so I'm coming from the trade paperback that was published in 2001. I actually don't own this. This was available at our public library. So you may thank them very much because I did not have to pay any money to read this. It includes now in it. It's an obvious collection, and it includes JLA 42 through 46, JLA Secret Files, stories from JLA Secret Files number 3, and JLA 80-page Giant number 1. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through all the stories as in order of which they are printed in the trade paperback. But I will give creator credits, titles, etc. from issue to issue. But I'm going to do the whole thing at once like we usually do.
Sounds good.
So our first issue is JLA 42. This was published on April 26, 2000. It is called Half a Mind to Save the World. Writer is Dan Curtis Johnson. Mark Pajarillo, Pajarillo, penciler, Walden Wong, inker, Ken Lopez, letterer, Pat Garrahy, colorist, Heroic Age Separations, Tony Bedard, associate editor, Dan Raspler was the editor. This one doesn't really have anything to do with the Tower of Babel. It's in the trade because this was right before writing for the trade became a real thing. It was just kind of the dawn of that particular age. So we are getting one-off stories between big storylines, et cetera, and they are just slotted into the trade paperbacks because the trade paperback before this was, I believe, World War III, and we may need to make sure that every issue of JLA is collected. This also doesn't have anything to do with Oracle, but I will at least tell you that it's an atom-centered story where he goes inside the brain of a young man who is dying from an odd illness, one which has actually grown life and a society within his body. The JLA shrink themselves down. They're drawn into fighting for the survival of this person as well as not destroying this society within. It ends with a Superman Krypton rocket reference. It's very classic science fiction. There's something Philip K. Dick or Ray Bradbury about this. There's something Twilight Zone or Star Trek about it. It's a solid one and done story. But our main event begins in JLA 43. This came out on May 24th, 2000. This is Tower of Babel Part 1, Survival of the Fittest. Credits are Mark Wade's story, Howard Porter, penciler, Drew Geraci? Geraci,
yeah.
Drew Geraci inks, Ken Lopez letterer, Pat Garrahy, colorist, Heroic Age Separations, and Bedard and Raspler were on edits. We open with Ra's al Ghul sending one of his underlings to his death, and that after that underling has fed one of his pet tigers a piece of chocolate and killing it. That was the last tiger of his kind, and this allows our villain to monologue about how he has a master plan to take down the Justice League and one that will keep the detective occupied. And speaking of the detective, or as we know him, Batman, he is currently in daylight as Bruce Wayne, visiting his parents' graves, and he's shocked to see that beneath the headstone is a giant hole, and their bodies are missing. The first target of the League of Assassins is John Johns, the Martian Manhunter, whom Talia and her men hit with some sort of nanite virus. We then cut to the Black Forest in Germany, where a huge wildfire has been blazing for hours. Wonder Woman and the Flash are on the scene, and they see that something or someone is at the center of the conflagration and is more than likely the cause. They put the fire out and stop that person, only to discover that it is John. At the United Nations headquarters in New York, heated negotiations between Turkey and the fictional nation of Rapistan, which are being overseen by the Kingdom of Atlantis, are interrupted by Aquaman and Plastic Man, who are being chased by assassins who eventually hit them, not with bullets, but with devices that physically and mentally affect them. Plas is frozen and then gets bashed with a hammer, so he's in pieces, while Aquaman suddenly becomes deathly afraid of water. We cut to the Watchtower where Superman is examining Martian Manhunter's skin and says that the nanites and the virus that he was hit with have bonded with his skin and turned it into magnesium. Plastic Man and Aquaman arrive and are in bad shape. They're attended to by Wonder Woman and the Flash, while Superman contacts Batman, whom we see is hanging to the front of a helicopter and fighting several men with guns. He tells Superman that the League can handle it without him, and Superman concludes that whatever it is Batman is dealing with, it must be serious because he wouldn't just blow off a League emergency like that. Meanwhile, Ra's al Ghul sits in his headquarters overseeing the situation and crossing off pictures of the Leaguers who have already been taken down. He's ready for his next step, which we see when we cut to Metropolis, where the Daily Planet scrambles to publish a headline that is complete gobbledygook. It seems like that all over the place. Printed word on screen and paper is all jumbled and into babble. There you go. Finally, we see Diana and Wally visit Kyle's apartment, which they have reached after a lot of searching because of the whole babble jumble thing. And they discover that Green Lantern is sitting in his apartment and he's completely blind. Next up is Tower of Babel Part 2, 7 Little Indians, which is published in JLA 44. Came out on June 28th, 2000. Credits on this one are the same as the previous part. We open in enemy headquarters where Ra's al Ghul is overseeing the global chaos his machinations have caused. And right on time, well, really ahead of schedule, of course, is Batman, who bursts into wanting to know where his parents are. Ray monologues that he's only got so much time to deal with Bruce. After all, he's got his country's 500th anniversary to plan, his wedding to arrange, his wife to murder, and Gilda to blame for it. He's swamped. Batman can see for himself that the caskets of the Waynes are being held over a Lazarus pit. We cut to New York, where Kyle is blind, and it seems that he's another victim of the League of Assassins. Wally and Diana suit up just as assassins break into Kyle's apartment and hit them with something, nanites or whatever, some sort of, disruption device. In Metropolis, Superman saves a kid from touching the third rail of a subway line. He then talks to Oracle, who tells him that someone is broadcasting the babble via a signal that is scrambling the language centers of the brain and is causing chaos over the world. Airliners almost collide. The stock exchange is a mess. Missile silos dangle precariously on launch. Doctors lose patience. Voters in Florida accidentally vote for Pat Buchanan instead of Al Gore. It's chaos. In New York, Diana is fighting in mortal combat against the League of Assassins Superwoman, or so she thinks. What she was hit with has knocked her out, and she's convinced that this is actually happening. And what it's doing is bringing her very, very close to having a heart attack. The Flash then begins to have seizures at the speed of light. On the Watchtower, Aquaman is struggling to survive and requests Volko, who is in Atlantis, sends something to the moon. In Metropolis, Superman repurposes a force field that Brainiac once used against the city to shield the city from the effects of the Babel signal. Back in New York, the League of Assassins people, whose leader is, of course, Talia, are attacked by a blind and raging GL, but since he really can't direct anything and really make anything cohesive, they end up taking him down easily. In the Bad Guy HQ, Ra's al Ghul is telling Batman that he took down the League while Batman berates him for using his parents as a bait for a trap. Rock then whips out a red stone, one that shocks Batman. Back in New York, Jean appears in Kyle's apartment wearing an Atlantean water suit, which basically looks like a spacesuit filled with water, and fights Talia and the goons. Aquaman communicates with him that he has to be careful because the suit is not meant for combat. Then Superman shows up and makes quick work of the bad guys. Or so it seems. While Batman tries to get in touch with Superman over a communicator, Talia whips out the same red stone that her father was holding earlier and explains that basically this is a version of Red K that is designed to debilitate him but not kill him. As Superman falls on the floor in searing pain, Batman screams into his communicator that the traps they all fell into were ones that he designed.
Ugh.
We then have an interlude. This is called Blame, and it's from JLA Secret Files and Origins number 3. Pub date on this was October 11th of 2000. Creative team is D. Curtis Johnson, writer, Pablo Raimondi, penciler, Claude St. Aubin, and David Mikas inkers, Tom McGraw colorist, John Costanza letterer, Tony Bedard editor. This details how Talia, in a skin-tight Bond villainous outfit that would fit right in on either the Wildcats or Stormwatch teams, snuck onto the Watchtower and gathered what she needed while Batman was working on setting up the traps that she would eventually steal. We see Aquaman and Batman talking about how Batman plans to be a step ahead of his enemies. We get a sparring match and a shipping moment between Bruce and Diana. We get Batman talking to Kyle about his art. Later, on another trip, which suggests that she and her father were playing the long game here, Talia steals data from the Watchtower computer and, knowing it's encrypted, beams down to the Batcave. We get a flashback to Bruce planning against John, much to Alfred's chagrin, by the way, and we see Talia decrypt the info, get a hold of the Red K, although she does say that the League would end up manufacturing their own version. And it's suggested that at one point they were able to hack into and steal information from Oracle's computer. Our last page shows the closing images from our previous part, and it's revealed that their plan worked. And then we head into Tower of Babel Part 3, which is called Protected from the Cold. It is from JLA number 45. This is July 26th, 2000. The credits are mostly the same, except John Cleese is doing the colors instead of Pat Garrahy, and there is a mention of a special thanks to Xander Cannon. I don't know what that's about. So let's get into the story, though. The world is in chaos. The Justice League has been completely taken out, and Batman races through the Himalayan snow while being chased by men holding guns and screaming over his communicator to Superman that he's the reason everything is so messed up. Batman plunges over a cliff, although, of course, he grabs onto a rock to save himself from falling to his death. On the Watchtower, a severely dehydrated Aquaman tries to beam up Superman but passes out. A cracked and very weakened Plastic Man then steps in. They beam the fallen Leaguers aboard and begin repairing them. Jean, who's still in the suit, puts Aquaman in a water tank, but because Aquaman is scared of water, John makes him think that he's actually standing in the Sahara Desert. Plastic Man oozes his finger into Diana's ear and reenacts that scene in Star Trek II where the ugly bug crawls out of Chekhov's ear. The Flash and Green Lantern are cured, and while the Red K makes Superman's skin transparent so we see all of his muscle tissue, he observes the chaos in the world below. In Bad Guy HQ, Talia confronts her father about what he has been doing. Ra's al Ghul replies that he is going to do what he has always said he was going to do, which is to eliminate a significant amount of humanity because they have overrun the planet and need to be reduced to only those who are fit to survive. Besides, if he had the Infinity Gauntlet, it would be a lot easier, but that's the wrong company here, so he has to use this scheme and use Batman to do it, which, when you think of it, is probably more fun for him anyway. It's all about the hunt and not about the success with Drop the Demon. He gets interrupted by a henchman who's in, like, his face is completely covered in a mask, and that henchman says that Batman's dead. Talia's, where's the body? And he says they don't have it, and she slaps him because, like, you know, are you really stupid to think that Batman is dead and you don't have the body? Which, to be honest with you, pretty smart, you know. She's dealt with Batman enough times. She chews out Reese for his megalomaniacal plan, and we see that the henchmen walk away and take off his mask to reveal himself as Batman. Although how his horns don't poke through the top of the mask when he's wearing it is beyond me. And I'm sure that someone could come on and pedantically bat-splain to all of us how Bruce can wear a full face mask over his cowl and not have the cowl show. But you know what I'm going to say? It's a comic book and it works for the plot. All right, so he gets out, he commandeers a jet, and he radios the Watchtower. The JLA, who are weakened but at least not out of commission, wonder if this is all a trap. Superman flies out of the Watchtower and right into Batman's flight path. They head to Antarctica, where there's a tower broadcasting that signal that's scrambling all the language. They take that tower down. Just as they begin to ask Batman, what the hell, dude? Talia calls them and tells them that while they did hurt her father, his plan is still moving forward, which includes causing discord around the world, and that means warfare. She begins to tell them what they need to do, but is shot by another member of the League of Assassins who is happy to take her out because it'll raise his profile with the boss. He ends the transmission, but not before letting Batman and the League know that they are looking for a very small needle in a very large haystack. We then get to our final part of Tower of Babel. This is JLA 46, which came out on August 30th of 2000. It's called Harsh Words. Same creative team as Part 3. Jean finally emerges from his water suit. His body is no longer made of magnesium because he has destroyed the nanite. Arthur begins to panic, having realized where he is, and John tries to calm him down and help him focus. In Antarctica, the JLA is being what the hell, dude, with bats, and we'll talk about it later, because they have the matter of saving the world to attend to. Superman and Batman head to Rock-Il-Gile's headquarters, where the rest of the team heads to the Middle East to find a biochemical weapon that Rapistan is going to use on Turkey. The Flash races ahead of everybody, but when they catch up to him, they see that he was too late. The virus has been unleashed, and he is vibrating to the point where he is intangible, and he can't move either, because if he does, his slipstream will scatter the virus across all the winds, et cetera, which actually probably physically makes sense. On the way to the castle bad guy, Batman explains that a battle with Agamemnon, an old villain. I almost typed Agamemnon, by the way.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Because, Agamemnon, an old villain who was the big bad in that year's miniseries, The Silver Age, convinced him that he needed to create fail-safes in case one of them got out of control. They reached the mountain just as Rich is about to throw that suck-up employee into the lion pit because that guy really thought that, I don't know, shooting the boss's daughter was a way to gain favor. Blood is thicker than water, numbnut. But just in the nick of time, Superman bursts in and rescues this guy. In the Sahara, GL has power ringed a dome around the Flash and the virus, while Plastic Man and Wonder Woman team up to take out the thugs who are unleashing the other canister with the virus. They fight them on top of a building in the Rapistani capital, and Diana holds one of the guys in her lasso while he primes the canister to open. Batman and Superman corral all of the lions and tigers in the League's zoo and then head for where Ra's al Ghul is still suspending the corpses of the Waynes over a Lazarus pit. Superman goes to get the coffins, but the chunk of red K has been placed between them. He falls toward the pit. The latch and the platform holding the coffins get released, and just as Thomas and Martha are about to get Lazarus-sized, Aquaman uses his hook hand to save Supes, and Jean catches the platform and flies it away from the pit. Batman tries to get the big guy, but only finds his henchmen, one of whom tells him that it's all for a lost cause because by now the canisters holding the virus have been opened and everyone is going to die. It's not true, though, because Wonder Woman's lasso is doing its work, and the truth is that the henchman really doesn't want to do this. So he locks the canister back up. We end on the Watchtower, where everything has been fixed and the world is fine. As Batman waits in the conference room, the League votes on whether or not to expel him. Jean and Aquaman get into a shouting match with Jean, GL, and Flash voting to keep Batman in the League, and Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Plastic Man voting for expulsion. The deciding vote comes down to, of course, Superman. They ask if Batman knows him well enough to know how he'll vote, and as they enter the JLA conference room, Superman says yes, and they see an empty room. Batman has left. Now, that is the end of Tower of Babel, but there are some epilogues that are in the trade, and these are from the Secret Files and Origins, as well as that 80-page giant that I mentioned. So I'm going to briefly summarize those. The first one is called Lost Pages. It's from JLA Secret Files and Origins number 3. This is also from October 11, 2000. Same thing as the Blame story. Credits on this are Mark Waid, writer, Steve Scott, penciler, Mark Probst, inker, John Costanza, letters. Colors are by Tom McCraw. This is the aftermath of the vote as seen by other teams in the DCU and who are also associated with Batman. At Titans HQ, Flash talks to Nightwing about what happened and how he voted to keep Batman in, even though he has to wonder if Dick has kept files on people the way Bruce does, which is the same thing that Superboy basically asks Wonder Girl as Young Justice fights thugs in a city, and the team is obviously wondering if Robin is doing the same. We then cut to a conversation between Batman and Oracle. She is telling him that since they booted him, they haven't called her at all, and that bothers her because she's their information person. He says that maybe they didn't need her, and she suggests that maybe the JLA thinks that she was his partner in gathering the intelligence that brought about their downfall.
Interesting.
Furthermore, she relates the Titans are suspicious of Nightwing, Young Justice is side-eyeing Robin. Batman begins to say that if they're smart, they can turn that into a strength. She yells at him for not listening to her and says that he caused a ripple effect and wants to know if he's sorry, but he cuts the transmission. We then see her talking to Superman, telling him that she wanted him to see it. She then hangs up and Superman sits in the Watchtower holding his head, bothered by all of it. The last two stories in the trade are from a comic that actually came out 2 years prior. This is from JLA 80-page giant number 1 that hit the stands on May 13th, 1998. Very brief summaries of both stories. The first story is called The Green Bullet. It's written by John Ostrander with pencils by Ken Lashley, inks by Ron Boyd, lettered by Janice Chang, and colors by John Calise. Back during the satellite era, so we're talking like what we would have seen in like the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, Batman and Jim Gordon investigate death on the Gotham City docks. They find a green bullet at the scene, which makes Superman the prime suspect. They investigate and find that Intergang is responsible, and things get traced back to Lex Luthor, whom Batman warns to stay out of Gotham, and the JLA tells him that the JLA will be watching him. And I only say that this is the satellite era because Hal Jordan is Green Lantern, Black Canaries in the JLA. It's that classic JLA, even though it's taking place in post-crisis DCU. So Luthor is the corporate Luthor. It's meant to be that era. The other story is Revelations, and the creative team is Christopher Priest, writer, Eric Battle, penciler, Prentice Rollins, inker, Kurt Hathaway, letterer, John Calise, colors. This is a Wonder Woman and Aquaman team-up. They are rescuing a submarine from a collapsed ancient tunnel. While they pull the sub up to the surface, Arthur, who has gotten tangled up in the lasso, talks about how he kind of wants Diana, in a matter of speaking. They fight some underwater villains, and she winds up having to save him, saying that she herself has an attraction to him. When all is fixed, Arthur asks Diana to keep this between them. She agrees with a patronizing pat on the cheek. And that is it.
Now, I'm deeply regretful because I did not know about this.
Epilogue?
Lost pages? Yes. And that would have been, I'm going to have to track that down because that seems like a really big character build for Oracle anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a very short story. I think it's like I said, if you got the trade that I got out of the library, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 pages in it out of this JLA Secret Files and Origins number 3.
Okay.
So
I'll have to look it up. Yeah, I ended up reading the individual issues, so some of these extras that you talked about, I did not read.
Those Secret Files and Origins books were fun sometimes because they would play around with like bits and pieces in between scenes. So like the other one was that Talia story of like her sneaking around the watchtower and getting all the information, which wasn't like crucial to the story. We just, you can assume that they're capable of that. It's, Ra's al Ghul is really, he's a great villain for this because he's got like this empire of, the League of Assassins. He's a Bond villain essentially. So, he's got the resources to do what he's able to do, but it was kind of cool to see, to get her point of view and see that. But they used to do Titans ones, and they would go back to like stories from like past eras and things like that, or like little bits and pieces of character moments and stuff. I always enjoyed those Secret Files and Origins things, less for the sort of pseudo who's who entries and more for the little vignettes that they used to publish.
Yeah. I first want to start off just with the beginning at the covers. The covers of these 4 issues, I've been looking at these and trying to pay more attention to them more and more. So for issue 43, it almost reminds me a little bit of Identity Crisis, one of those issues there. But you've got Raish or Rosh or Rish or Raz or any sort of pronunciation that Tom gave us. And I suppose it's a crow.
Scarecrows, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have bullet hold costumes, just the main 4, I guess that's all they could really. Oh, no, never mind. If you scroll down, you see more. All of the JLA members and assuming that they're dead there. Any thoughts on the covers? Oh, that cover anyways?
Yeah, that's a pretty nice cover. I mean, we don't have to be... We can be very upfront about who the villain is. I mean, he's introduced pretty much early on, and he's not one to... Yeah, he's one for posturing anyway, so he's it's fine. This isn't like, some sort of big reveal. We want to see how it's going to play out.
Yep.
So it's an attention-getting piece, too.
Mm-hmm. The next one I really liked because Batman's there in the background as sort of the puppeteer, and you have the Justice League as marionettes.
Yeah, this is like a takeoff. How many times have we seen covers where like, there's a new Teen Titans cover. It's issue, I think, 9. They're taking on a villain called like the Puppet Master, and they're all on strings. I mean, we've seen, it's a classic comics cover trope. It's a good one.
And then the third one, you get to the heart of what the Tower of Babel actually is, where you have 3 Justice League members and they're basically saying gibberish, which I wonder if it was actually what those words were, or if they just made the gibberish, or if they were words and then translated into the
I don't know. That's interesting, yeah.
And then the tower in the background, so we're clearly in Antarctica.
Yeah.
The final one here. So probably I would say the first 2 are the most interesting in my opinion. But the final one, you just have all the Justice League members. I'm actually surprised Batman is there, because I think if you almost didn't have him and you had all the JLA members looking towards the viewer, it would almost be as if they were all looking towards and judging Batman.
Yeah.
So that could have been an interesting decision.
I have apparently the second printing of the trade here. Howard Porter did the cover to the trade, and it's this image of all of the Justice Leaguers standing down on the snow, like completely defeated, and Batman just standing above them.
Oh, okay.
Are you familiar with the image?
Maybe if I Googled it. Which
Hold on, let me
it
text
again?
it to you.
Oh, okay, that works.
It's the trade paperback.
Oh, okay.
I actually like the cover of the trade paperback because of the way Batman just kind of ominously, like, half guilty, half just stone-faced standing above all the apparent dead bodies of the JLA.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So, in fact, that's the image I've always associated with this storyline, because I never read it in individual issues.
Yeah, and it actually pays attention to Plastic Man, because it kind of seems like, is his suit even on the first one?
No,
his suit's not on the first one.
Because you got Wonder Woman, Superman, Martian Manhunter, Aquaman is all the way in the back, and then you have Flash, Batman, and GL.
Yeah.
It's kind of a good fake out with Batman's suit on the cover of that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, but so this one for the trade, anyways, that cover, you at least give him some points, and he suffered a great deal, and he his character. We can talk about his character, because I thought his was almost the most interesting character change, just how his whole arc in this particular story. But it's just sad that they don't give him any time on the cover.
Yeah.
So. Okay, well, you brought him up a little bit. I did want to talk a little about Raisha Roz as a villain. So you thought he served the story well. Do you ever think that Roz is overused, or do you think he's used frequently, but he's used well and with a purpose? Could there have been another villain that suited this story? Lots of questions for you.
I think that because you're stealing all the things from Batman, because that's the big thing. It's not that he took down the Justice League, it's that he did it by stealing what Batman had planned. You can't use anybody else but Ra's al Ghul, because he's the only villain who knows Batman as Bruce Wayne. True. He has such an inside knowledge of him. I'm trying to think of the stories I've read of his. I still have to read the original Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams stories with him. I've never actually read them. I have read Son of the Demon. I read that a billion years ago. I have Bride of the Demon in hardcover. I remember reading Legacy, but vaguely remember it. And then there might have been another story. So my experience and a couple of one-offs here and there with Talia. So my experience with Ra's al Ghul has been very limited, but I find that to me, he's one of those villains who I think that you need to have like a really good writer on him, because he could be misused. And I wouldn't use him too much either.
Okay.
Like, he's good in storylines that have like high stakes, because he's like a world-breaking villain. He's not the Riddler. The Riddler you can have the Riddler show up, a couple of times a year and try to pull some heist or whatever, and it's a one and done or whatever. Ra's al Ghul, there's a lot more at stake when he is involved, because his whole objective is saving the planet by killing a significant portion of humanity. Yeah, I thought it was well used in this, and I thought because you needed Batman to be the one who ultimately betrayed his own team, he's the best villain to do it, because he also he's playing like this game of chess against Bruce, so it's this, I think it really, really works.
I agree. I think the only one who could potentially still do it is Vandal Savage, but he still doesn't have that personal connection that Ra's has.
Yeah, and also you have to throw Talia in there as well.
Right.
And I think her love and adversarial relationship with Bruce is really, really important to just about any story they're in together. But it's the crux of why they end up winning in the story. She just kind of, she ultimately betrays her father and she's done it, which she's done countless times. Yeah. So it's a bit of a trope in her thing, but at the same time, it's like, no, it is like she is kind of torn between her love of her father and her love of Batman. And, she doesn't always agree with her father. So she is a little bit her own person in that regard. So I think that's the only way Vandal Savage might not work, because you need a character like Talia in this as well, or Talia makes it a better story.
Yeah, absolutely. I also, his whole thing is eliminating the population. He very much is a Thanos in a way, because it's a great comparison, because he, the world is suffering because of all these people, so he wants to eliminate them. Mm-hmm. And each time you see him, even though that's his shtick, each time you see him, he always comes up with a different way of doing it. So I was happy to see that, this is a really unique way. And then we'll also talk about I feel like there's a commentary, or at least a lesson to learn about reading or being able to read. But yeah, sometimes I feel like there's too much Ra's al Ghul. He always seems to pop up. But as long as he's, I think, used well, and I think for this particular story, I think it really needs someone who has that personal attachment to Batman, who in a sense was also the antagonist of the story. Mm-hmm. I think he is well used, and as you said, the Talia thing as well. So okay, well, let's see here. Shall we go to Power Man? Let's go to Power Man. Not Power Man, what am I saying?
Plastic Man?
Yeah. Plastic Man. Okay, so Plastic Man, what did you think about him in this? Because we've seen him, he's basically been in this era of the JLA that we've been reading, and he's always a crack up, and you and I were also disgusted when he was the dress that Big Barda wore. I'll always remember that. But here, I felt like he was a completely different character, not from the get-go, mind you, but just I felt like he had a really interesting arc. Did you have any thoughts about him as a character in the story?
I got the feeling that Mark Waid was taking him a little more seriously.
Yeah. I
don't know if Grant Morrison had there are times where I wonder if Grant Morrison was including a couple of these characters because he was told to. I don't know how much editorial control he was allowed to have. Howard Porter still had fun with Plass's stretchiness and the silliness of the character. But I feel like, I don't feel it's not one of those really cliche stories of now I see how serious everything is, because he always did. But he gets some genuinely heroic moments, as opposed to, even if he was cracking jokes, like he's the one who beams up the other heroes because Aquaman is collapsed over from dehydration, and he's sitting there and he's been all put back together by Green Lantern from what we get on the next panel, the next page or whatever. He was literally reassembled because they froze him and then they shattered him, so he's gone through that. And then he gets the virus out of John. Mm-hmm. No, out of Diana. Sorry. He gets the thing out of Diana, which is done through this. It's kind of icky, but it's he just lengthens his finger and he's like, ew, 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 which I think any of us would. So, but there's a legitimate use. He's not just there for, silly objects and stuff. And then the scene where he votes out Batman is really, really well done, because it's two panels, a long one and it's across the top of the page and then a panel. They turn to him. Green Lantern says, "Come on, man. He brought you in." And he says, yeah, he did. I owe him that. I know that. And he's facing GL. And GL says then, and behind Plastic Man in the panel is the image of him being shattered by the hammer. And he turns around and he has his back to GL and he says, "Get him out of here." And then it's like he walks away. And I'm like, wow, it's such a simple moment, but it's just a great serious moment for the character who is clearly hurt. And so I really like how that was done.
Yeah, I think he could certainly be a character that masks a lot of his pain with humor. And I don't know if we necessarily see that, though. Like I said, he could, right? Mm-hmm. But he's just out and out humorous, and sometimes it's really hilarious, but I think for the most part he's almost obnoxious.
Yeah.
Because he just wants to be the clown. And here it's just really interesting how all of I think with him, in my opinion, well, I guess you could argue this for any of the characters, but I think you really see how devastating doing something like this to somebody, having that contingency plan affects somebody, like down to their core. And I mean, we can go through everyone and potentially make that argument, but the fact that it changes his character and how he his performance is gone. He's just like a flat person. I don't know if this is the real Plastic Man and the other thing is the act, but he's just completely different. I remember that one panel where Flash was talking to him, and I don't know if he told him to do something or he asked a question, but Plastic Man just like responds like any other character would respond, and Flash goes, "Whoa, no quip," and like, no, that's not who he is now. So I think using Plastic Man as sort of the model of look what Batman, like this plan has wrought, I think was just really intense. And yeah, that scene at the end was, I think, great. Just like thinking back, yeah, he understands, he maybe should be on Batman's side, but the fact that he did this to me, that was devastating, and I don't think I can trust him anymore. And so I think it was my favorite character to watch and see that arc and see just the devastation that Batman caused with this plan that he had.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, a quick correction on my summary. The art
about the names?
No. On part 4 of Tower of Babel, there was a different art team. Steve Scott was guest pencils. Mark Probst was guest inks. I think I might have missed that because I was flipping through part 4. I'm like, why is the art so inconsistent and different? And then I realized, it's a totally different penciler. But no, I agree with you. Mark Waid is easily one of the best superhero writers in the biz and has been since the 90s. You know, his Flash run is like one of the seminal runs in that character. And he's such a good writer that if I'm going to have a story like this, he's going to be one of the people to tell it.
Yeah. And I will say that a fun little detail that they did art-wise is that when Plastic Man was still healing or trying to be more cohesive, his word bubbles were cracked.
Oh, interesting. I don't think I noticed that.
What a nice and small detail to show, like to represent and mirror the fact that his body is cracked. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
And just like a simple thing.
And if you look at the next page where he's pulling the thing out of Wonder Woman's ear, he's mostly back together except for like part of his head and his right arm. So now his word balloon it's just gray but not cracked. You know, gray outline but not cracked. Yeah, so credit to is it John? Is it? Yeah, and they're cracked a little bit later. So yeah, that's a really cool little detail. And credit to Ken Lopez who lettered the book. I mean, that's got to be him, right?
Yeah.
So
I would assume
credit to him.
Yeah, adding that little detail.
Yeah, credit to him.
So we cannot go much further before talking about Batman here.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, anytime I bring up Batman, there's always controversy with things I say. And I think you and I often are on the same page with certain actions that Batman does we disagree with. And I'm usually against Donovan. But we do need to talk about him here. So I've got several questions with this guy. But let us first go with, do you think that what he does, having these contingency plans, seems reasonable? And do you think that it makes sense with his character? Let's start with that.
In my mind, it is not reasonable because you should trust your teammates.
Sure.
Jack. For his character this time, though, it makes sense.
Okay.
It's logical to me that he would think of this because this was what he was like. At least from what I remember reading of Batman in the late in this particular era. If this was 70s, 80s Batman, pre-crisis Batman, I don't think he'd do that.
Okay. I would also say it's unreasonable, but I want to save my reason for why until this other question that I have.
Sure.
So, because this is the reason why. But I would agree. I mean, we kind of are in the Batman is a jerk era, and he's there. And even though I didn't read the Lost story that I absolutely need to read now, the fact that what Oracle asks if he's going to apologize and he hangs up or something, or what did she say? Do you regret it? And he hangs up.
She says, "What you've done, there's such a ritual effect, and if you meant for that to happen, admit it right now. If you're not sorry about how all this went down, then tell me so. Say something." She glares at him. He kind of glares back and hangs up the phone.
I know, there's like no regret. There's no remorse. I've got a problem with that. So, and I mean, maybe he does.
He's
but
being
he
he's just being, he's not showing it. He's being a stubborn jack.
Yeah. Okay. So here's connection to why I think it is unreasonable. Does it go against his character, the fact that so we've already said that it's in line with his character in this era, but do you think it is in line with his character that a couple of these fail-safes were in fact meant to be lethal?
That doesn't make sense to me. I can see how the couple that were not would work, but most of them actually had the potential to be lethal. If you think about it. So I think is pushing it too far, because I think this is still of the era where we would say Batman is not supposed to have to kill, right?
Right.
At least at this point in time. I know he's killed in the past and everything. I'm not going to open up that can of worms. But at the same time, if he's very much against, if he has a code like that, we're taking down his friends here. Mm-hmm. This isn't like, the ultimate plan to take down the Joker if he has to actually kill the Joker. I'm sure he's considered that at one point or another, No, that's kind of a bridge too far there.
Yeah.
That is somebody has to take out Batman after that's done, because he has gone too far.
Yeah. Evil Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think it is unreasonable what he did, because it wasn't, I agree with you that they're team members, there should be trust, and I'm hearing his arguments, so I'll at least have empathy that I understand about the Agamemno thing, and he saw that potential that it could be bad. But he's not doing disable. I'm going to disable you. It's like some of them, I would say the majority of them were kills. Aquaman would have died because he was afraid of water, so he would have died at one point. John would have died if not from the fire, from like heart failure because of his anxiety. Another heart failure. The intent was to kill Wonder Woman because she would have fought until she could no longer physically fight.
Uh-huh.
Plastic Man would have been shattered he was, right?
Yeah.
And if he had not been collected. So that's 4 out of 6 because Kyle was blind. So he doesn't have a career anymore, but he could still make his way. And then Superman, I think, was just in a great amount of pain, but he not necessarily die. So I just thought, yikes. Once you read this and you think about, all these lines that he's stepping over, and then you look at Huntress, you're like, maybe what Huntress did wasn't so bad.
I know. And I think that's also important. The files that he's keeping and the contingencies he's enacting is the type of stuff that Cadmus or the DEO would have in place on one of the CW shows like Supergirl or something. This is total some Black Ops shadowy government thing that you'd see in current day superhero stuff, or like in some of the movies and TV, or maybe that Amanda Waller would have actually planned. This is totally an Amanda Waller thing, right?
Yeah.
And I don't, like I said, with Batman being like this, it's not out of character, but it is way too far. And I guess we can explain it that his paranoia, his obsession is just getting the better of him.
Yeah. Whoo, boy. Yeah. So the last question connected with all this is, how would you personally vote?
I think I would side with Superman. I think, as much as it would pain me, because I think he's, one of those people who's an asset to the JLA or whatever, I think you gotta kick him out.
Yeah. So do you agree with how everyone voted?
Yeah, pretty much. I see the reasons for both for and against. And I think that Clark didn't want to, but knew he had to. And that's why Bruce left.
Yeah. I like the fact that's a nice moment in terms of all the turmoil.
Yeah.
The fact that Bruce and Clark know each other so well.
Yeah.
That Bruce doesn't even need to stay because he knows exactly how Clark is going to vote. I thought that's like, yeah, they're friends-ish.
Yeah.
So,
and I will say that, so about 4 years later, 3 or 4 years later, Identity Crisis comes out.
my favorite.
And I don't remember if they reveal it in Identity Crisis or if it's revealed in the sort of semi-sequel in the JLA book right before Infinite Crisis called Crisis of Conscience, where they reveal that they mind-wiped Batman at one point for one of the events surrounding the rape of Sue Didney and what they did to Dr. Light, because he would have been against the mind-wiping of Dr. Light. And he gets very, he's upset at that. So I don't think it's a callback to this. I think it was just to show the sort of insular nature of the league within a league, but it did. This was kind of, it's, like he did something to all of them, and there was a, retroactively speaking, it was juxtaposed it with what they did to him or something. That sort of weird betrayal.
Thank you for using that word. Final question. I think I've not my final, but with Jean was also accused of doing something similar. Do you feel like what he did, which was collect intel, which is similar to what Oracle does if you think about it, but just intel on the people, but not, he didn't think about taking them down or anything. It was just information purposes. Did you feel like that was on the level of Batman at all?
No, because it's mentioned, and John has a reply that he once owned them. I want to say, he says, but information only, no schemes and no plans. So he was keeping files on them. And he says, but it appears I never knew as much about Batman as any of us should have. So he's kind of regretting the fact that he didn't know more about Bruce. But no, it doesn't seem like, it seems the way he phrased it was more of a personnel file type of thing, or just knowing who his teammates was. Yeah, because he was also a detective and things like that. So I think it's different. I think it's a false equivalence if you're going to accuse him of hypocrisy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree too. I mean, they were coming down on hard on this guy, and he was a victim too. Yeah. Poor guy. Okay, well, I think those were the only questions on the story that I had. Did you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, not really. It's just it's becoming a kind of an iconic story, at least for those of us who were reading comics back. This is kind of one of the bigs, and it's a great follow up to a Grant Morrison run that it's held up as one of the best JLA runs. Your big superstar writer leaves the book. Now you get Wade. Wade is a superstar writer in his own right. He doesn't have the flash of Grant Morrison in terms of notoriety and stuff. Mm-hmm. He's way more accessible in my mind. Heck of a nice guy too. But I think he just did an outstanding job. I really, really like it. Porter, the art isn't consistent in general, even within Porter, the chapter Porter does, where sometimes they look really on model and really good, and sometimes things kind of look awkward.
Yeah.
And Talia's hot.
Oh my gosh! Thanks, Shag, for coming on the show.
The JLA Secret File thing, the first page of that Blame story, they've got, it's not by Howard Porter, but they've got her. In the trade, it's the page right after Batman screaming, "I did this to you! I did this to you!" And they show her holding up the red K as Superman, and she's wearing kind of the more modern or the New 52 Catwoman suit, where the thing was always zipped down to her, near her navel. And it's very, very Image Comics from about the early 90s. So it's, but Talia was always very sexy. Like I said, she's a Bond girl. She's a Bond villain. Sure. She's a Bond villainess, and they play into that really, really well.
Yep. Yeah, I very much enjoy this story. I had read it, probably several years ago.
Yeah, me too.
But reading it again and also discussing it has been a lot of fun, and especially since now it's been, on this trajectory of JLA with the Oracle and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, Oracle doesn't have very much to do.
I know. You would think she would have. Yeah. I would have put her as a point person instead of Aquaman. Aquaman figures things out because he's the one who figures out how they're being tracked and everything. And so he's kind of the intellectual of that. And I thought, oh, well, Oracle could have played way more. She also could have yelled at Batman, but maybe they didn't want to get into that drama.
So I guess my question is, was the scrambling signal thing a way to take out Oracle, or was it Ra's wanting to cause chaos? Because it does, you think of the chaos in one's life that legit straight up, I can't read a single thing, illiteracy will cause.
Yeah.
Or this, it's almost like no, it's not a dyslexia, because dyslexia is you can see the actual letters of the word. They're just mixed around, right?
Yeah.
So, but with this was literal babble. It was like, everything was changed to like default font, default type. And so if you think about it, like the markets are crashing and everything because like it's just total global chaos, shutdown. Nobody knows what's going on. So it would make sense for Rish to do that just for him, because he wants to sow discord and he wants to have everybody blow each other up, which in my mind is counterproductive in a little bit. He has to be careful, because he has to be careful that nobody busts out any nukes. Because if you want to save the planet, creating a nuclear wasteland is not the way to do it. But I do wonder, if you're doing this and you're scrambling information out, this is how you take out Barbara Gordon.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's never revealed either that this was part of Batman's plan.
Yeah. And I think it goes to show, I mean, there's probably not necessarily commentary, but just how important being able to read really is in the real world.
Yeah.
Because I think, some people, there used to be a stigma. I think there is a stigma still attached to it, but I think it's different now than it was way back when, 19th, 18th century and everything. But just looking at everything that people, for ambulances to get to the right street, doctors looking at like all of this stuff, you're like, oh wow, really the world is built around being able to read. It's pretty intense and amazing, which is why you should listen to Required Reading.
Yes, you should. Yes, you should.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, what would you give this story? What should we say out of 10? What should the rating system be?
I'm giving it a 9, only because I think there are some great pieces of art. The scene where he is, I did this to you, and that's a really well composed page with Superman, feeling terrible. The scene where Superman flies out and meets Batman, where he's in the flight path of the jet. It's gorgeous. It's colored beautifully. It's staged very, very well. But the art is inconsistent. I think that, I'm trying to think of somebody who could have done this at the time, and I'm drawing a blank. Maybe like a Mike McCone, a Barry Kitson. Who else was working at DC at the time? Jerry Ordway would have done this very, very well, or George Perez, but I don't think I don't know if they were consistently doing stuff with DC at the time. I think that I like Howard Porter, but there are panels where I'm like, ooh, that face just does not look good and stuff like that. So that's why I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10.
Okay. I think I'll agree with you and give it a 9 out of 10 shattered plastic men.
Okay.
And just because I really liked it, but I think, if I were to say that for me, Identity Crisis is a 10 out of 10 JLA in crisis story, then I think this one might be a little bit less. Okay. But otherwise, just some great character beats and I think lots of thought-provoking dialogue. Okay. Well, there's just one listener email.
Mail time. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time. Mail's here.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
From Max, and Max says, Stella, if this email jumps around a bit, it's because I've never written into a show before with the prospect of my words being read out aloud, so I don't know how to say what I want to say, and what I want to say is thank you. I stumbled onto your podcast while trying to do research about the Bat family and got mad when I couldn't find a Nightwing podcast. Considering he is my favorite superhero ever. Ooh. Max, you've given me a hint as to your location because of how you spelled favorite. I figured I'll listen about Babs as a consolation prize of sorts. She was only cool as Oracle, right? Well, considering I spent a year and a half going through your backlogs, bless you.
Good God.
I kicked myself repeatedly at that thought. I became a fan of Babs, and I became a fan of you as well. I read Batgirl Year 1 on your recommendation. I see changing the race of comic characters differently because of your insight. I think about the Killing Joke differently because of your episode and sods on it, and I've grown to love comics even more. I'm just so happy. I don't read many comics or books because I have a hard time visualizing what's happening, so I tend to just read words or look at pretty pictures. But your recaps let me read the issues without slogging through the numerous thought bubbles saying the same thing each issue and boring me slightly. I've started the current Nightwing run because I want to read more comics and read through Batman Hush a while ago, which I loved. I do have a few questions before I wrap up. Number 1, do you think it's possible to be a fan of comic book heroes without reading the comics, but gathering knowledge through video games, movies, and cartoons? Tom, what do you think about this?
Can you be a Batman fan without reading the comics?
Yeah, we'll say Batman. Yeah, but any comic fan. Hero,
yeah, of course you can.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, that's the easy answer. I think I will freely admit that there are times I get slightly annoyed at theatrical fan. It's only with Spider-Man because these people love this Spider-Man so much. And for me, it's like heart-wrenching because I feel like he's not an accurate representation. So just don't. That's the only one I think that I'm bad about. But yeah, I think you can be a fan of anything. I think there will be some mean people that you'll come against that will be like comic book purists and be like, if you don't read the comic books, you're not a true fan.
My wife loves Wonder Woman, has never read Wonder Woman comics. Come at her and see what happens if you're little. Yeah, I mean, come on. You can be a fan of something. And I will also say that the people who get crap for this more than anybody else, and this is any fandom, it's sports as well, are women. Because my wife's also a sports fan, and she has come across guys who hear that she likes a team, and all of a sudden it's not, hey, let's talk about this. It's, I'm going to start quizzing you about this team. It's so sexist and so ridiculous. Nobody is impressed, Encyclopedia Britannica guy. Go away. Or just enjoy the fact that somebody else likes what you like. You can be a fan without having read all the crap. So
yeah, because I mean, if you think about like anime, you can like
except
the
for
anime
Batman,
without having read
graduate work to be a Batman fan, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, this comes from a sour spot in Tom's life. But anyways, you can watch the anime without having read the original manga. I actually became a fan of
at all.
Yeah, I'm sure. The only anime you've really watched is Robotech.
Yeah, Robotech.
And something that your college friends had watched or something. That's what you told me, some hentai, I think.
There was another one that he watched called Ninja Scroll, which I thought was pretty good. And I've seen a couple of Miyazaki films. So I've seen a little – I've seen Princess Mononoke and
Spirited Away.
So, and I've seen Akira.
Yeah, so – yeah.
So I've seen basic level anime, but I'm not much of a.
There you go. Yeah, so the easy answer is absolutely. I mean, as a fun little side story for me, I became a big fan of Carol Danvers, oddly, through this little Facebook game that they had, like an Avengers game on Facebook where you built up a team and you fought other people and things. Yeah, I was like, oh, who is this? And then I did reading and everything. So I think you can either stay where you are or maybe it'll grow into something else when you start looking at comic books. But I think you love what you love. I don't think anyone should shame you or anything for it. So
Well, this is also that hipster principle of for music fans, like the ones like the band before they were cool.
Oh, sure.
I had their indie release or whatever before they were signed by a major label, and you're just some newbie fan because you heard, I don't know, the first big Dave Matthews Band single on the radio, and all of a sudden you're a big DMB fan. I was there back when they were playing fraternity houses or something like that, and you look down upon those people. It's a false sense of superiority because they're insecure about their place in life, and that's the only thing they have to hold on to. And those of us who are out there in the world honestly couldn't give a flying rat's behind about how much crap they have and how much they have gone and seen and done. So
there you go.
There you go.
Okay. Well, Tom's on his little soapbox, so let's pull him off of
snark box.
Question number. Yeah. To question number 2, if you had to change how Barbara was paralyzed because she's better at Oracle, anyone who disagrees can fight me. You can at Max at that. How would you? Do you have any thoughts on this, Tom?
I would change it if we had to paralyze. I don't think she needed to be paralyzed in order to be Oracle. Although it's a conundrum because you could have had her simply retire from superheroing and then go into Oracle.
Certainly what she was doing in the 1980s.
But at the same time, I think you've talked and we've talked about how, or we may have talked, or a lot of people talk about how it's a positive representation for somebody in a wheelchair, right? So if you take out the wheelchair, it causes a problem because you had a really, really good character. However, why she didn't check the people in the door? I hate the Killing Joke. I really hate the Killing Joke. So if there was a different way to get her injured, I don't know. I think you did this episode. Remember that Batman the animated series episode where they it's like she falls to her death or whatever. Yeah. What if it was something like that? It was over the edge. So what if it was something like that, but she didn't get killed? She got paralyzed from the injury. So she was on I think that's what bothered there's a lot about the Killing Joke that bothers me. I think the thing that bothers me about the Killing Joke, the fact that her injury, is that it's so secondary to everything else in the plot. And if she was going to go down as Batgirl, maybe it was just kind of the danger of the job. Like she got severely hurt on the job, and this is her recovering. She's never going to walk again. But now she's like, you know what? I'm still a hero, and I'm going to do this. Maybe that would have been better.
Yeah, I think it needed to be less passive.
Yeah.
And she needed to be in action somehow, and just like a brutal battle.
Yeah.
Somehow. And, saving somebody. Yeah. I think doing the thing that she loved and what she, really believed in, I think would have been the best time to potentially have it done.
So.
Okay, and then the final question was, what has been my favorite Zaius? Zaius, don't know how to spell it. That's okay. Zaius is Zaius, based off of Dr. Zaius.
Zaius?
His name was.
From Planet of the Apes?
Are you sure it's Zaius?
Oh, it's
You're
Dr.
telling
Zaius.
Me this.
Help
You're
me,
telling me
Dr.
this
Zaius. Dr.
10
Zaius, Dr.
years.
Zaius. Well, I didn't know why you were calling it. I had no idea it was Zaius.
How on earth have you let me go
because
for
I had
10
no idea
years?
what you were referencing. You just said,
you're ridiculous.
No,
you're utterly
seriously
ridiculous.
just said doctor, and I was like, I honestly, you have to understand, it wasn't until you said New Comics Express that Mike Bailey and I realized.
Yeah, I know.
That's what the hell NICE stood for. Dr. Zaius.
Well, I'm gonna continue to call it Zaius now because you know what? I've been doing it for 10 years and no one corrected me, so I'm just gonna do it. So Zaius or Zaius, Raish, Raz, who knows? Which one is it's one of Max's favorite segments, and Max said, I've gasped at some of your picks in public multiple times, like Hit Me With Your Best Shot and Thank You by Dido for the last issue of Stephanie Brown's series. That's really hard for me to answer because if you think, 10 times 12 plus, well, I don't know. Why was I doing that? That was really idiotic of me. For 181 episodes, there's been some sort of interstitial music. And a lot of it is just from my own listening. Like I'll find it and I'll be like, oh, wow, that'd be really great there. Other times I look at what's going on in the plot and in the new Batgirl title and try to align it somehow. So there have been, some really great ones. I think I'm on a Tegan and Sarah kick. So I think anytime I've used any of their songs, like Hero, I've used that one. Any of them. But I love them all. I think there's not been one that I've not liked or I wouldn't have used it. But there have been a couple 6-minute songs. Didn't I do a Doors one recently?
Yeah, I think you did. Did you light my fire? Yeah, you did light my fire. Yes,
that's what it was. Yeah, so I've done some long ones. So I think some people just fast forward, which is fine, but it's fun to and I think if you subscribe on YouTube, Dustin, my editor, has to take out all of the audio because,
copyright.
Yeah, which is interesting. So I kind of feel bad for the people that they're just blank things when I feel really smart about some of the little interstitial music and cues I have. But anyway, yes, that's hard. Can you think of anything that's been your favorite for Zaius?
Well, I'm a big fan. I mean, you used the Doors recently. I really like the Doors song because as somebody who grew up playing the piano, I love that or keyboard solo in Light My Fire, you use Springsteen, so it's going to be the boss for me.
I remember that. I think I used that at the beginning, and because you said for the first time ever you didn't fast forward through the beginning.
No, I think you used it for Zaius' Radio Hour.
Oh, so you do fast forward through my Zaius.
if it's a song that interests me, I will listen to it.
Okay.
If I'm like, or sometimes I'll start listening to it. I'm like, and because I've got 4 more hours to go. So,
well, okay, thank you. You're one of the reasons why it's 4 hours, sir. Well, Max, thank you so much. I'm like so appreciative that you have listened through all of that. You've started off 20 minutes, exploded to 4 to 5 hour episodes. So bless you. And Max finishes up by saying, thank you for the awesome work and entertainment. Now I've got to start Everyone Loves the Drake, which is also a great show. So remember, you can always write in to batgirl@gmail.com or write on the website, the Batman Universe, under the thing, and I'll always answer. So thank you. We are going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to just review one last issue, and of course have the only reason why Tom comes on, the literature recommendations. But first, it's going to be Zaius' Radio Hour, or Zaius, who knows. And this time it's Burn by So here we are. It is Batgirl 40, or as I like to say, Batgirl 92. Oracle Rising, Part 4. Writer Cecil Castellucci. Artist Carmine D. Giandomenico. Getting better. Colorist Jordi Belair. Burnside is on fire, and Babs watches at home, believing it is connected somehow to Lex's offer. Out as Batgirl, she notices that every place that she helped before while she was located in Burnside is actually on fire, and she wonders if that is a coincidence. On a roof a distance away in Burnside, Oracle and Vulture watch the mayhem. Vulture contacts the rest of the terrible trio and quickly finds out that there is no escape for them, so they might actually die. On the street, Oracle takes some hostages to help speed along the chances that Batgirl will risk a confrontation. Frankie, remember that character? Looks on and tries to contact Batgirl tries to contact Batgirl and has to use a payphone. OMG, do you remember those times?
I remember those very, very well.
Yeah. I really needed one time when my cell phone died and I was on my way to San Diego Comic-Con. The airport did not have any, and the people at the help desk were really angry and not nice. I was like, you don't have a payphone? Can I use your phone? Anyways. Oracle sticks her hand in the fire, and Vulture freaks out, and at that moment they both realize that Oracle is indestructible and Vulture is a friend. We'll get back to that. Batgirl reaches the Burnside Bridge, and she gives directions to the cops to save the warehouses with the pharmaceutical stock first, and they tell her that some operator, or someone named Operator, told them a robot is after Batgirl, and she quickly realizes that that must be Frankie. Not the robot, of course, but the operator. Meanwhile, Alejo, Jason, and Izzy are on a flight 37 to DC. The group finds out the news and they decide Batgirl is toxic and they will explore, is this a surprise, an anti-vigilante platform. Back in Burnside, Batgirl spots Fox and they tussle, with Fox losing and letting the others know where Batgirl is going. At Frankie's apartment, Frankie reminisces about Babs leaving her tricked out wheelchair, which is kind of insensitive that you're like leaving the apartment, but you're going to leave this cumbersome thing here. Kind of seems, you should have taken it with you there, yeah. Oracle. But anyways, Batgirl at the time had left Oracle capabilities within the wheelchair, so she also said that was for Frankie. So Frankie activates it, and both Oracle and Batgirl notice that it has been activated. On the way, Batgirl fights the new shark and takes him down. Oracle locates the signal and then plugs in Vulture, because Oracle has decided Vulture is a friend and trusts Vulture, plugs Vulture in so that she or he or they can be the lookout as Oracle moves up to meet Frankie. Oracle lifts the chair, the wheelchair, of course, and a thumb drive pops out, which has the backup for the true Oracle. She then puts it in her system and begins uploading. Batgirl tries to surprise them from above outside the building, but she's prevented from this since, of course, Oracle knows her every move. Batgirl is just as confused as the rest of us, mainly me, how Oracle has a body, since it's a program, not a sentient AGI. Oracle demands to know why it was abandoned when a light show in the sky that looks like the Hall of Doom appears. While Oracle is distracted, Frankie knocks the thumb drive out of Oracle, and presumably, it's not exactly shown, I've looked everywhere on the page, Batgirl grabs it. Since Oracle knows Batgirl's every move, as I've said before, she does something Oracle would not think she would do, and she leaps off the building into the fire. May she rest in peace. The end of Batgirl. This is like the second time I've said that Batgirl has died, which is kind of funny. Okay, so the end of Batgirl is the next issue, or she could already be dead. Okay, well, as one of my goals for this past year or so has been bringing art more into focus, which you did a great job, Tom. I did a terrible job on the JLA, except for the covers. But here, did you have any favorite art panels or pages in this particular issue?
I'm trying to find one. There's a lot on each page. The last couple pages are really well done. At least that last page of her throwing down the smoke bomb, then the look on Oracle's face, then her jumping off, like the little panel of her kind of glaring at her and then jumping off. Right. I thought that was a well-paced and well-composed page. Mm-hmm. I like how the slim panels of both Oracle's face and Batgirl's face are the same size as well. I think it's a really well laid out page, and I love the small image of Batgirl against this enormous fire.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool.
Show what she's up against. Yeah. I think it's page 8 if you count the cover. I just like the little map to show like the little basically blueprints of Burnside, and you can see their little circles, icons of where the different characters are. I mean, that's probably, it's not like, woo, look at how high art that is, but I think it's
cool.
just fun.
I like that as well.
Yeah. And it's good to give you context of where the people are, because otherwise it's kind of like in your mind of where are they in the Burnside City.
Yeah.
And I don't talk about it a lot, but the main cover here, not the variant, I actually really liked, where it's just the one boot. Well, 2 boots, I guess. And there's some blood, and then there are bats, almost like it almost seems like they're coming out of the boots,
cool,
but just around. I actually think that that's pretty cool and minimal, but powerful.
I think 8 and 9 are a double page spread too.
Yes,
and I think because I have it as a digital, so I don't have the book in front of me, but I think Barbara's fist and Fox's hand going across the gutter like that into the other page works really, really well, because it flows from right to left, so the action is going across the spread as opposed to off the page, which is what you want to do with the direction on your layout. So.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Well, since this is the first time I think I've talked to you with Castellucci's writing and this particular arc, you did read up to this point.
I did.
So what are your thoughts on this arc so far with Oracle as the villain?
I like the fact that this fearsome foursome or whatever they're called, like, have no idea, really have no idea what the heck they unleashed on the world. Like, they kind of bumbled into this whole thing, and they're, like, kind of idiots, and it's almost like it's kind of like Lex and Superman 2 with the Kryptonians, like, they're kind of tagging along, and like Oracle's really in control. I am kind of like, where the heck did this body come from though?
Thank you.
And why is it all like sexy Metropolis robot? You've heard of the movie Metropolis. Yeah, that's all I can think of is the robot from the movie Metropolis, Fritz Lang's Metropolis. But it's like, where does this sexy robot body come from? Because I don't remember this being part of anything.
Thank you. So even in your reread, because I was thinking, did I miss something?
I was like, where does this come from? Granted, I haven't been following it as closely as you have. Also, the other thing is, as you were going over it, I want to know too. We're supposed to assume she has the flash drive, the thumb drive.
I think so. You can't see it, but Frankie knocks it out of her. I see
Frankie knocks it out of her hand, and the next panel is
Batgirl. And,
her left hand is holding her cape to shield her from the smoke, and the right hand is holding the smoke bomb.
Right.
We never see her pick it up.
Correct.
It would have been.
I mean, it's important detail.
Yeah, that kind of bugs me. I mean, it doesn't ruin the story for me or anything like that, but that bugged me a little bit.
And I mean, it's the thing that would save the situation, but it's also like clearly Oracle wants it so that she can, I suppose, use that program. So I guess it makes sense for Batgirl to have it and leap off to her doom into the fire.
This going to be like, is this we want to take in a new direction, so let's literally torch things from the past type of thing? No. You know what I mean? It's like, do we have to? Yeah. I mean, the whole setting Burnside on fire to get the message across, it was a pretty well done thing. I think we've seen that in other, it's a trope that's been used in other things, but I don't know. It's like, but maybe is it that meta, or is this just like, here we're going after something back that's important to Batgirl, in the way that we would go after something that's important to Batman,
I've been feeling that way since even Scott's run, really, that, she was forced to return to Gotham. We didn't really see Frankie anymore. She lost Gordon Clean Energy. And it was one of my points and questions that, is Burnside going to turn into a bit of a no man's land, that Batgirl can't return after this, that it's just going to be messed up and she can't return? And,
well, then this no vigilante thing, it's like, come on.
Yeah. It seems like we're leading towards it. I mean, even Jason has, which is weird though, because it doesn't jive with, and I think you were even on those episodes where Jason was trying to almost ingratiate himself with Batgirl But now the past couple issues, he's called Batgirl a menace and also had this, like, we need to think about an anti-vigilante thing. So there's a bit of a discrepancy, I think, between writers and plans. But it does seem like, are we going to have Batgirl Public Enemy #1, which we did already. So that's my issue with this current era of Batgirl, is just like everything I'm reading is stuff I'm reading before, and I wonder where the originality is.
Yeah, I mean, how many times are we going to come back to this?
Yeah.
You know, so especially since like they tried to get her involved in the politics in Gotham, and the whole storyline was, oh, she's not around enough. You know, I mean, it never really got into some of the intricacies of the things, and some of the stuff with the Penguin was interesting, but by and large, all I remember is the fact that Barbara they wanted to give Barbara a job so that she could leave the job and almost get fired, and it was comic relief. I mean, so they never really did much with it.
Not really sure. What do you think about Frankie's role in this particular issue? We get to see her a little bit.
I've always liked Frankie as a character. I was worried that they were going to kill her. I hope I'm not wrong with my worry there. I'm like, oh crap, is she showing up just for them to kill her off? I liked her finding.
They really would be cleaning.
I liked the souped up wheelchair though. That was cool.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that she is the one that's boots on the ground for right now and brings Batgirl in, so she's almost the handler to Batgirl in the action.
I like that she uses her crutch to knock the chip. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So she's got her action. Yeah, and I think, it almost goes back to the Burnside run that we had where she helped Barbara with a lot of the tech issues that she had.
Also, what is Oracle's motivation?
She wants to know why she was rejected by her maker, i.e. Batgirl, and then she wants to take vengeance upon her after she finds her.
Okay. I guess that makes sense.
So to get to Batgirl, she had to go through Burns.
Okay. Okay, that does make sense. But she kind of returned out of nowhere and had so we need to get a little bit of background of like where all this came from.
The body, and then the program, how the program again, how did it?
Because she was like in one like a secret government facility or something, right? Like in a storehouse somewhere.
Correct.
So who maybe you might be on. So who put her there to begin with?
Unknown at this time. I mean, Lex knew she was
that
there.
I'm not surprised by, though. Because it's
but why Barbara would go and be like, oh, I've had enough with this program. But she always would use that program, so I don't know how.
So we need like an origin issue or a backstory issue.
Oh, boy. Yeah, absolutely. Do you think because we found out that this robot is indestructible, do you think it's possible to destroy Oracle, or is it just going to be a T2 kind of situation? T1.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think it might be a little bit of that, or it might be like the Cyborg Superman, where you blow him up and then he'll come back eventually. So I think they'll be able to destroy them to the part where they can end the story, but there's the potential for Oracle to come back.
Yeah, if you were to choose, because this is of course whatever the title is, villains. What is it? Oh, you're the villain. If you were to choose someone other than this embodiment of the program, Oracle, what villain would you have chosen to go up against Batgirl that may have been more successful?
I don't know, honestly. Sorry, I'm trying to think of one.
That's okay. I put you on the spot. I need to write this down.
No, that's cool. Maybe like a team up of a couple of villains, maybe Firefly and I don't know. You could get if you wanted to get maybe like. Oh, now I'm going like Sinister Six sort of territory, but like, maybe, I don't know if you bring Killer Moth back because he's still like really pissed off from the beginning of the story arc. Yeah. Or maybe these four recruit a couple of people to do they've wisened up and they've got some people running they're running a show of sending some people out after her. You could get, I'm trying to think of people who appeared like back in the 90s, like some of the Chuck Dixon villains and things like that, some of the mercenary type villains and stuff. That might be fun to see her fight against and stuff. So now I don't know off the top of my head. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there could have been more successful villains to use, especially because Barbara had issues with the program in her brain already, and so this just seems like a physical manifestation of the same thing. And when I feel like Killer Moth, when you did that, you could have expanded that way more instead of just having a couple fights with him. Yeah, bringing some people back from the Bronze Age, like the Cavalier or Firefly, just back in her history, I think would have been really interesting, and maybe it would have been fun to just like, hey, look at this, deep dive into her history.
Did Cormorant die at the end of that arc?
He did get killed.
I was going to
Jason
say that would have been a.
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Any more thoughts on this issue?
No, it's not bad. It's pretty solid, the story arc. I mean, as weird as it is in places where we're like, what the heck is going on? At least it's got enough action. And I like those 3 or 4 the guys with the animal. The animals are the terrible. That's what it is. The terrible trio. I call them like the fearsome foursome or something. I like them. They're a clever group. They're kind of bumbling in places, but I do like when she fights against them. But and it was entertaining. So I can't slag it too much.
Do you think are those masks or not? Because it seemed like Vulture was in pain when Oracle plugged into her.
Unless the plugging into the eye is like it somehow connected and giving him like a wicked headache or something. I don't know. I can't tell if they're like mutants or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So out of 10 bats, what would you give this?
About a 7.5. I really like the artwork. I will say that. The story as a continuing part of this, it was very solid. So it's like a solid 7.5.
I'm gonna go down a half and say a 7 out of 10. So I've basically been staying in this range for this arc. So it's kind of dragging for me. I feel like maybe we could cut some space. Like in my opinion, not much happened in this particular issue. It was just fire, mayhem. Basically just Frankie and getting that. You could have done that in a couple of pages. So I'm hoping that the next issue we get answers. It picks up. Some stuff happens. I don't know how long this arc is supposed to go, but it's kind of dragging for me now. Yeah. So we'll see. So 7 out of 10 bats for me. Now over to Chris's cornucopia of curiosities.
That's like an extra hour of sleep and having some extra Halloween candy left over. Thank you very much, Stella. Hello, Bat fans. Welcome once again to the Chris's Cornucopia of Curiosities segment. Thank you very much for downloading, and as always, thank you for not fast-forwarding. My name is Chris, and I'm very glad to be with you. Today I'm covering Batman Adventures number 25, and in the Nightwatch segment, Nightwing number 65 and Nightwing Annual number 2. Batman Adventures number 25 was cover dated early November 1994 and cover priced at $2.50. As per usual, we have our creative team of Kelly Puckett as the writer, Mike Parabek was the penciler, Rick Burchett was the inker, and Rick Taylor was the colorist. The Batman was created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. This story was reprinted in the Batman Adventures trade paperback Volume 3 and does appear to be available on DC Comics app for 99 cents. Our story today is entitled Super Friends. Act 1. Tick, Tick, Tick. At a nighttime black tie party in Gotham City, General Turgidson introduces Bruce Wayne to Lex Luthor, who gives Bruce an extra firm handshake. The business rivals are vying for a government military contract, with Luthor proposing remote-controlled combat robots, while Bruce Wayne places an emphasis on surveillance and information technology. Clark Kent then joins the conversation while Luthor departs. Bruce and Clark notice suspicious activity, and Clark's X-ray vision spies a bomb under a cart. The disguised heroes quickly excuse themselves. Superman bursts into the room, takes the bomb, and flies off and hurls the bomb into space, and returns back to Gotham to aid Batman in stopping the car carrying the bombers. Just then, an earthquake rattles the city. Act 2. Sinners in the hands of an angry Zeus. Maxie Zeus, who claims he caused the earthquake and will cause another by midnight if his list of demands are not met and delivered to Gotham Square, puts his pleas on videotape, and it's watched by the authorities and Luthor. Luthor takes immediate action by deploying his hunter-seeker robots. Batman ascertains that the earthquake is caused by an underground explosive, and our heroes find 2 of Zeus's henchmen in a room building facing Gotham Square. Act 3. The Gods Must Be Crazy. Our heroes burst in on Maxie's hideout. Superman seizes Zeus's scepter, which controls a trigger mechanism for the quakes. Luthor's robots arrive and shoot at Superman. Luthor is watching remotely with the General, and he claims that Superman must be mistaken for the enemy. Superman disposes of the robots. Batman takes care of the men. Afterwards, Batman confronts Luthor, knowing that Zeus wasn't smart enough to pull off this on his own, and this was all a ruse for Luthor to show off his robots. Batman blackmails Luthor to withdraw his bid and gives Lex an extra firm handshake. Shortly after, Batman tells Superman Bruce Wayne will withdraw his bid in a matter of conflict of interest, and despite their different methods, keep their friendship intact. The end. Okay, for my notes, per online sources, this issue is the technical debut of Superman and Lex Luthor in the DC animated universe, though it was written and published before Superman the animated series had begun production. Thus, much like Superman and the Batman magazine, this issue features a more literal adaptation of the elements from mainstream comics at the time, such as Superman's mullet hairstyle and Luthor's younger red-headed clone body. Also, General Turketson is probably a reference to the warmongering character of the same name from Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. Yes, the depictions of Clark Kent with a ponytail and Superman with long hair didn't age well, and it's a bit worse than Luthor's mane of red hair and beard sans mustache. That said, Superman's facial expressions are really evocative of the old Fleischer cartoons, and they really look great. There are brilliant scenes of 3-panel per page layout depicting each respective hero in action with a marvelous balance. The writing was clever, and the plot, a credible threat, and our hero's display of knowledge was a real treat. Batman being unnerved at Superman's ability to stand in the air. We see street signs named after editor and assistant editor Scott Peterson and Darren Vincenzo as well. This was fast-paced, well-drawn, and a lot of fun. With a higher price, there was an additional page count, and this issue also included 10 pinups with art by Alex Toth, Dave Gibbons, Kelly Jones, Kevin Nolan, Mark Chiarello, Mike Mignola, Matt Wagner, and Chuck Dixon, and Rick Burchett. So, all in all, I'm giving Batman Adventures number 25 9 out of 10 bats. Now, for everyone's favorite segment within a segment, it's Night Watch. That's where I look at the current issue of Nightwing from a shipper's perspective. At the time of this recording, Nightwing number 65 and Nightwing Annual number 2, which just came in under the wire, are the current issues. Spoilers ahead. Picking up where we left off in Nightwing number 65, Talon and Nightwing square off in a fight while Bee watches and gets a bit roughed up herself. Talon claims that he's Richard's great-grandfather. An odd green symbol appears in the dark sky, as does in other current DC comics, and Rick Grayson unmasks Talon. However, Talon manages to affix a pair of goggles on Nightwing, and Nightwing stands transfixed, presumably about to have his mind altered. To be continued. Not really an eventful issue, but Bee isn't forgotten as she has a few lines for what they are. I'll give Nightwing number 65 a lukewarm shipper alert. In Nightwing Annual number 2, we flash back to the events of Dick's brain injury and his subsequent rehabilitations with Dr. Isabella Haas. There is no real evidence of any shipping material here. The sessions are somewhat eventful, but Barbara Gordon is also present and has very little to do. Bruce's plan to shock Dick's memory backfires, and Rick is sort of resigned to his fate. However, we see that Dr. Haas appears to be a member of the Court of Owls, a presence revealed to be behind the scenes since Dick's childhood. Inconceivable, you say, perhaps? Interesting, mildly. But bottom line, no shipper alert in Nightwing Annual number 2. This concludes this edition of Night Watch. I'd like to give a shout out to my friends the Sutherlands. Be sure to check out their podcasts on the Rad Adventures Network. Listeners, you can find me on Twitter at BTOMBatBooks. I can also be found on the Batbooks for Beginners podcast that I co-host with my talented friend Jerry, and that's where we review trade paperbacks involving Batman and or related characters. New episodes of that podcast drop every other Friday. Jerry and I can also be heard on the Professor Frenzy Show. That's where we spotlight and talk about the previous week's independent comic book releases and mention new releases, comic book related items, and things that we think deserve some attention. New episodes of that show drop every Wednesday. Thank you. Listeners, don't forget, you can also hear Stella on the Required Reading podcast. What issue will Chris decide to cover in the next episode? Can the Batman stop the Joker and Harley Quinn in 24 hours? Will the Scarecrow be able to go straight? Don't fail to listen to the next podcast where the answers to these questions will be relayed, revealed, relished, recited reliably next time. Same Stella feed, same Stella site.
Thank you, Chris. There's no anime watch list because I just have not had time. All my time has been devoted towards reading and work also. So now is our final thing. It unfortunately, is a marathon for me, so I'm going to have to go through my multiple books very quickly so I don't waste Tom's time. But Tom, I give you the floor first. What have you been reading and what would you recommend?
I am pulling up my Goodreads list right now. I am in the middle of I'm teaching Toni Morrison's Beloved in about a few weeks, so I'm doing a reread of that. I'm also in the middle of reading the novel Cry the Beloved Country. I'm only about 60 or 70 pages in, so I don't have much of a opinion on it. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. I have read. I'm trying to remember the last time I was on here. Nonfiction-wise, I read a book called The Collapse, The Accidental Opening of the Berlin Wall by Mary-Elise Sarratt, who is a historian out of Harvard. It is about the events leading up to and including the fall of the Berlin Wall in November of 1989. I'm doing that as research for a podcast mini-series I am doing called Fallen Walls, Open Curtains, which is about the end of the Cold War as well as pop culture in the Cold War as a whole. So I'm going to be doing that's going to start. The first episode's dropping November 9th. And it's going to be about the Berlin Wall, and then every quarter until the end of December 2021. Because the
You're going backwards.
Yeah, well, because I'm covering events, so it'll be sort of quote real time, like covering events of 89 through 91, because the Soviet Union ceases to exist in December of 91. So I'll cover the history, and then I'll have a spotlight on some sort of piece of popular culture. So like my second episode is going to be like crazy paranoid Cold War comics from the 50s and stuff like that. So I'll look at movies and stuff. Yeah, so that'll be a pop culture affidavit. I got a free graphic novel from Comixology, so I read Wonder Woman: Her Greatest Battles.
How'd you get it free?
I got it was through Amazon. I had bought something. It was like, here's the you earned this or whatever. Two things I got at the Baltimore Comic-Con. One was the first printed hardcover of a webcomic called The Middle Age by Steve Conley. It's this very funny satirical fantasy thing where this middle-aged knight who's got a total pudgy body and everything is on a quest to save his love from a dragon, and he finds a mystical sword, and the sword hates him. And it's really funny, and it's fun for both. Like my kid and I both loved it, so I would recommend it. And I think you can see that at middleagecomic.com. I read the first volume of Valiant's new Rai, R-A-I, series, because I picked that up at the convention at the Valiant booth. It's called Welcome to New Japan. It takes place in 4001, where Rai is this sort of assassin of the Big Brother type of thing called Father that rules over this like Blade Runner-ish version of Japan. It kind of pulls, you can see where the inspiration it pulls from. Really good stuff. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to pick up future volumes. And then my novel, which I actually have a book thing about it, book club thing about it. It's called There. It is by Tommy Orange. And I will read the Goodreads summary of it.
Oh.
He is a Native American writer. Tommy Orange's wondrous and shattering novel follows 12 characters from Native communities, all traveling to the Big Oakland powwow, all connected to one another in ways that they may not yet realize. Among them is Jackie Redfeather, newly sober and trying to make it back to the family she left behind. Dean Oxendine, pulling his life together after his uncle's death and working at the powwow to honor his memory. 14-year-old Orville coming to perform traditional dance for the very first time. Together, this chorus of voices tells the plight of the urban Native American, grappling with a complex and painful history, with an inheritance of beauty and spirituality, with communion and sacrifice and heroism. Hailed as an instant classic, There is at once poignant and unflinching, utterly and contemporary, and truly unforgettable. So I read it for professional development at work. We have a book club that meets twice a year that you get PD relicensure points for. It's a great way to do PD because you get to read literature and talk about it. We have our discussion a couple of days from now, but it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's really engaging. It talks about Native American culture in a way that I had never really thought of. Urban Native American culture. It's really, really insightful. Even if it's fiction, you could tell it's like comes from a genuine place, and I would recommend it.
Okay, is that it?
As of right now, I'm trying to remember the last time. I read the first Essential X-Men volume of the Len Wein, Chris Claremont runs. So everything from Giant Size X-Men up to right before the Dark Phoenix saga. That was some good comics.
Isn't that number 5?
It was number... So there was 1, 2, 3 of classic X-Men, and this is number 1 of Essential of Uncanny X-Men. Of the Essential, the black and white Essential ones. Yeah, they're renumbered. And I have now read all 3 volumes of the Robotech Archives, the entire Macross saga, because I've been buying those as they come out. All right. I'll let you go.
Are you ready for my thing? Yeah. Let's see how it goes. 10:09. We'll see how long this takes me. Okay, first was a graphic novel, Woman World, by Aminder Dhaliwal. And this was actually a webcomic. She was posting it on Instagram, and then Drawn and Quarterly picked it up. But this is all of the panels collected together. When a birth defect wipes out the planet's entire population of men, Woman World rises out of society's ashes. Dhaliwal's infectiously funny Instagram comic follows a rebuilding process, tracking a group of women who have rallied together under the flag of Beyoncé's thighs. Only Grandma remembers the distant past, a civilization of Segway riding mall cops, blockbuster movie rental shops, and that's what she said jokes. For the most part, Woman World's residents are focused on their struggles with unrequited love and anxiety, not to mention that whole survival of humanity thing. Okay, there's one down. Battle Royale, which this was because of one of my nemeses from required reading, by Kushun Takami, and the translator was Yuji Oniki. Here we go. Oh no, I can't give a... Why is my book description in French? Basically, it is Hunger Games, but pre-Hunger Games in Japan, and there are 40 students, about 12 years old, and it's 600 pages long, so you get more character development, and you get to know more characters than just like Katniss, Peeta, etc. And very similar, the government is trying to repress people and fear and everything, and battle to the death. So I'll say that. But it is different. I mean, it's similar to Hunger Games, but it's different. And this is also before Hunger Games. So I do recommend giving it a fair shake. Then, My Beloved World by Sonia Sotomayor. And this is not political at all. So I don't even know what her politics are because she didn't even talk about it. But it was a memoir. So I recommend reading this. The first Latinx Puerto Rican and third woman appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, Sonia Sotomayor has become an instant American icon, now with a candor and intimacy never undertaken by a sitting justice. She recounts her life from a Bronx housing project to the federal bench, a journey that offers an inspiring testament to her own extraordinary determination and the power of believing in oneself. Then I read Born a Crime, Stories from a South African Childhood by Trevor Noah, which I'm sure many of you know of him from The Daily Show, of course. Let's see here. Born a Crime is a story of a mischievous young boy who grows into a restless young man as he struggles to find himself in a world where he was never supposed to exist. It is also the story of that young man's relationship with his fearless, rebellious, and fervently religious mother. His teammate, a woman determined to save her son from the cycle of poverty, violence, and abuse that would ultimately threaten her own life. And he was raised during the apartheid, and it was literally a crime for a white man and I think they referred to him as colored woman. I can't remember they had different definitions for everything, so either colored or black. I can't remember how they referred to it, but it was illegal for them to have a child or really have any relationship, and so he was literally born a crime. So that was very interesting. Oh my goodness. Then by Craig Thompson, I read Habibi, which apparently this guy can only write extremely long graphic novels because we're going to do blankets soon, Tom. Let's see here. Sprawling across an epic landscape of deserts, harems, and modern industrial clutter, Habibi tells the tale of Dodola and Zam, refugee child slaves bound to each other by chance, by circumstance, and by the love that grows between them. We follow them as their lives unfold together and apart, as they struggle to make a place for themselves in a world, not unlike our own, fueled by fear, lust, and greed, and as they discover the extraordinary depth and frailty of their connection. This guy, I mean, you should listen to... what will it be, December's episode of Required Reading, but just the details that he puts into the pages, and especially with this because there's a lot of Quran influence, which is interesting because Blankets has a lot of Christian influences, but just the details, I mean, he must have spent Whew, I don't even know. Then, High School by, here they are, Tegan and Sarah Quinn. A fantastic memoir that follows the highs and lows of this great musical duo in high school. Sorry. Oh, is that my review? I hope not. Oh, maybe it is. Okay. A fantastic memoir that follows the highs and lows of this great musical duo in high school. They tackle some difficult topics and speak truth into the struggle of coming out. These are my words here. I appreciated that the chapters alternate, they do, the point of view so that you may see a similar story in a different way. I also suggest making this a multimedia experience and purchasing their recent record, Hey, I'm Just Like You, so you can see the origin of these songs in the book and also have a soundtrack playing in your head as you read, because that soundtrack that just came out, or the album that just came out, were all the songs that they had done in high school, but they sort of refurbished them. Oh my gosh, I'm nearly there. Black Canary Ignite, which I just wrote a review on the BatmanUniverse.net, you can check it out, by Meg Cabot and Kara McGee. 13-year-old Dinah Lance knows exactly what she wants, who she is, and where she's going. First, she'll win the Battle of the Bands with her two best friends, then she'll join the Gotham City Junior Police Academy so she can solve crimes just like her dad. Who knows, her rock star group of friends may even save the world. But first, they'll need to agree on a band name. When a mysterious figure keeps getting in the way of Dinah's goals and threatens her friends and family, she'll learn more about herself, her mother's secret past, and navigating the various power chords of life. Okay, is this my last one? Two more and we're good to go. The Light Between Oceans by M.L. Stedman, Australia, 1926. After 4 harrowing years fighting on the Western Front, Tom Sherborne returns home to take a job as the lighthouse keeper on Janus Rock, nearly half a day's journey from the coast. To this isolated island where the supply boat comes once a season and shore leaves are granted every other year at best, Tom brings a young, bold, and loving wife, Isabel. Years later, after 2 miscarriages and 1 stillbirth, the grieving Isabel hears a baby's cries on the wind. A boat has washed up on shore carrying a dead man and a living baby. They end up taking the baby. They find the woman actually who lost the baby in town, and then there's a bit of a, well, what do we do now sort of situation. Do we continue the lie or not? And then finally, I think it was actually on Terry Moore's Instagram, unless it was somebody else, but he mentioned this sort of comic noir called Black Sad by Juan Diaz Canales and Juanjo Guarnido. But I don't know that I could. He's a private investigator, and he does mysteries. And there are 3 volumes, and they were really good. And they're sort of set in the 50s, 60s, so very noirish. Wow, I'm done. How long did that take? Great Scott, that took me 8 minutes. I'm so sorry, but now we're done. We are done, so you can come back in from your muting. Okay, there he is. Thank you for being with me on that time. Tom, before we wrap up, where can people find you?
You can find me over at Pop Culture Affidavit, where that's my main podcast with the soon-to-be, as of this recording, a couple weeks away, miniseries Fallen Walls, Open Curtains, which is on the same feed. That's popcultureaffidavit.com and twotruefreaks.com. You can find me on Twitter at PopAff, and you can find both of us at Required Reading with Tom and Stella, which is also at requiredreadingwithtomandstella.com.
And we just did Northanger Abbey.
And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest will be out in November.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And then December, like I said, Blankets. Yep. Well, remember, you can send any questions or comments to batgirloracle@gmail.com. So you have problems with anything that Tom said, you can send it to me and I'll forward it to you. You can also find the show on Google Play and Stitcher, like the show on Facebook, or follow it on Twitter at BatgirlOracle. And be sure to follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and support it by subscribing to Patreon. Once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Batgirl Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. So next episode is going to be a special where Tom and I actually do a commentary on the animated adaptation of Justice League of America, JLA, Tower of Babel, which is called Justice League Doom. So I'm very excited for that, because I think that was the first time that Tom was to do a commentary, a Halloween commentary.
It was
if I'm not mistaken.
Scooby-Doo, wasn't it? Didn't we do a Scooby-Doo episode?
Yeah, I think so. So it's like almost full circle. But until then,
fly on, Babs lovers.
Awesome.
Just plain Barbara Gordon, masquerading for a lark as she rides into the night on her special Batgirl cycle. Who knows? Is the dynamic duo destined to become the triumphant trio? Only time will tell us more about this dazzling daredoll.
I love a happy ending, don't you?
I just have a question. Did you mean to say Rosh Al Ghal? Ghal? Or did it autocorrect?
No, it's...
Rather than Raish or Raz Al Ghul?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Did you not read my script?
I'm reading it right now, but I don't remember him ever being referred to as Rosh Al Ghal.
It's a bit. I'm doing a bit.
Okay. You continue on with your bit then. I apologize for getting in the way. Are you changing it every time you say it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you now. Maybe I'll leave this in because I was so confused what was happening. Okay, you go on, sir. You're doing a wonderful job.
So where was I? Oh, the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yes.
He doesn't have the Infinity Gauntlet, so he has to do it the hard way, but he likes that, so there we go. Anyway.